Action Comics #1, The Origin of Superman, Earth 2, Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. Long before the world knew the name Superman, there was a planet called Krypton. It was a world of breathtaking cities built from crystal and steel, a civilization whose science had advanced far beyond anything humanity could imagine. For centuries, Krypton prospered under the light of its red sun, but beneath its surface, disaster was approaching. One scientist refused to ignore the warning signs. His name was Jor-El. After years of study, Jor-El reached a horrifying conclusion. Krypton is dying. He stood before the Science Council, presenting charts, seismic readings, and projections. The planet's core has become unstable. If we do nothing, Krypton will explode. The council dismissed him. Your findings are speculative. There is no cause for alarm. No evacuation will be authorized. Jor-El left the council chamber knowing there was no more time. Back at his home, his wife Laura held their infant son. Did they believe you? Jor-El lowered his head. No. Laura looked at their child. Then we save him. Together, they completed work on a prototype spacecraft designed for only one passenger. Jor-El gently placed his son inside. My son, you will grow up beneath a yellow sun. It will grant you abilities beyond imagination. You must use those gifts wisely. Laura kissed the child's forehead. You will never truly be alone. You carry all of Krypton with you. Outside, the ground shook violently. The sky split apart. Buildings began collapsing. Jor-El activated the launch sequence. The tiny rocket blasted into space just as Krypton erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. The last son of Krypton escaped. The small spacecraft traveled across the stars for countless light years before entering the atmosphere of a distant blue world, Earth. The rocket crashed into a Kansas wheat field on a quiet spring night. Nearby, farmers John Kent and Mary Kent were returning home after delivering supplies to town. John pointed toward the sky. Did you see that? The couple followed the trail of light until they reached the smoking crater. Inside the strange craft lay a smiling infant. Mary gasped. Oh, John. John carefully lifted the child into his arms. He isn't from around here. Mary smiled warmly. No. But maybe he belongs with us. The Kents had never been able to have children of their own. That night, they chose to raise the mysterious baby as their son. They named him Clark Kent. Clark's childhood was unlike any other. Before he could walk, he accidentally lifted furniture that no child should have been able to move. At 6 years old, he outran a freight train. At 8, he caught a falling tractor before it crushed his father. John sat beside him afterward. You can never show people everything you can do. Clark looked confused. But why? Because they'll fear what they don't understand. Clark nodded. I don't want anyone to be afraid of me. John smiled. Then use your gifts to help people. As Clark grew older, new abilities emerged. He could leap tremendous distances. His hearing became incredibly sensitive. His eyesight allowed him to see for miles. Eventually, he discovered he could fly. Despite possessing extraordinary abilities, John and Mary raised him with humility, compassion, and respect for others. Being strong doesn't make you a good man, John often reminded him. The choices you make do. Years passed. Clark became a quiet, kind-hearted young man. After graduating from college, he moved to Metropolis, the largest city in America. The city never slept. Towering skyscrapers reached into the clouds. Streetcars rattled through crowded avenues. Thousands hurried to work each morning. Clark wanted to make a difference, not only by using his powers, but by uncovering the truth. He accepted a job as a reporter at the Daily Star. The newspaper's bustling newsroom was always alive with ringing telephones, clacking typewriters, and editors shouting deadlines. Editor George Taylor addressed the staff. I need stories, people. Real stories. Clark quietly made his way to his desk. Across the room sat another reporter, Lois Lane. She was fearless, determined, and one of the best investigative journalists in the city. Without looking up from her notes, she said, You're the new guy. Clark smiled. Clark Kent. Lois Lane. She finally looked up. Can you keep up? Clark laughed softly. I'll do my best. Nearby, veteran reporter Jimmy Olsen waved. Welcome to the Daily Star. Clark already felt at home. Later that afternoon, a desperate scream echoed outside. A construction crane snapped. Steel beams crashed toward the crowded street below. People scattered. Clark looked around. No one was watching. He hurried into a nearby alley. Removing his glasses, he opened his shirt. Beneath it was a brilliant blue suit with a bold red and yellow S shield across the chest. A flowing crimson cape swept behind him. He launched into the sky. The falling crane stopped instantly as Superman caught it above the terrified crowd. Workers stared in disbelief. Children pointed upward. Look! A flying man! Superman carefully lowered the crane to the ground before vanishing into the clouds. Moments later, Clark Kent calmly returned to the Daily Star carrying a notebook. Lois looked at him suspiciously. You disappeared. Clark adjusted his glasses. I got caught in traffic. Lois raised an eyebrow. Traffic? Clark smiled awkwardly. Very unusual traffic. She wasn't convinced. That evening, Clark stood atop the Daily Star building overlooking Metropolis. He thought about Krypton, about the parents he never truly knew, about the parents who raised him. John's words echoed in his mind. Use your gifts to help people. Clark looked toward the city lights. As long as there are people who need help, I'll be there. With a single leap, he soared into the night sky. The age of Superman had begun. End of Action Comics number 1. Next issue, Action Comics number 2. Superman confronts corruption in Metropolis while investigative reporters Clark Kent and Lois Lane uncover a conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of the city's government. Action Comics number 2, Superman vs. Lex Luthor, Earth 2. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1. Mortals' morning broke over Metropolis. The city buzzed with one topic, the mysterious flying man. Newspapers across the city carried different headlines. WHO is the man in the cape. Metropolis saved by mystery hero. Inside the bustling newsroom of the Daily Star, reporters hurried between desks as editor George Taylor held up the morning edition. I want everything we've got on this Superman. Find out who he is. Clark Kent quietly adjusted his glasses. Across the room, Lois Lane grinned. I've already got a lead. Clark looked up. You shrugged. Not really, but I will. Clark smiled nervously. I wish you luck. Across town, in the gleaming headquarters of Luthor Industries, another man studied the newspaper. Lex Luthor, a brilliant scientist and industrialist whose intelligence was matched only by his ambition. He stared at the photograph of Superman lifting a construction crane. No man should possess that kind of power. An assistant entered. Mr. Luthor? Lex didn't look away from the newspaper. Have the laboratory prepare Project Atlas. The prototype isn't stable. I wasn't asking. Yes, sir. Later that afternoon, Clark and Lois covered the unveiling of Luthor Industries' newest experimental power generator. Crowds gathered outside the massive research facility. Lex stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, today we demonstrate the future of clean energy. Applause erupted. Lex activated the machine. For a few moments, everything worked perfectly. Then warning alarms blared. The generator overloaded. Electricity surged wildly through the building. Support beams exploded. People screamed. Clark quickly looked around. No one noticed him slip away. He ducked behind a maintenance truck. Moments later, Superman burst into the sky. He caught a collapsing steel tower before it crushed dozens of spectators. Workers fled as the generator continued to destabilize. Lex watched from behind protective glass. So, there you are. Superman tore open the machine's damaged casing and carefully redirected the energy high into the atmosphere. The explosion lit the sky like lightning. The danger was over. People cheered. Lex did not. Instead, he smiled. That evening, Lex entered a hidden laboratory beneath Luthor Industries. At the center stood a towering armored battlesuit, nearly 10 feet tall, covered in experimental weapons, powered by advanced energy cells. Lex climbed inside. If Superman wishes to play hero, the helmet sealed shut. Then let him face a man. Night fell over Metropolis. Police sirens echoed through downtown. The armored figure marched through the financial district. Cars were tossed aside. Buildings shook with every step. Citizens ran in terror. Superman descended from the sky. Everyone, get back! The armored figure turned. So, you finally arrived. Superman looked carefully at the machine. Who are you? The helmet opened just enough to reveal Lex's face. Lex Luthor, you've made quite an impression on my city. Superman remained calm. I'm trying to help people. Lex laughed. That's exactly the problem. You expect humanity to trust someone who fell from the sky. I don't ask anyone to trust me. No, Lex said coldly. You expect them to worship you. Without warning, the armor fired a barrage of energy blasts. Superman dodged the first volley. The second struck a nearby office building. Superman immediately changed direction, catching falling debris before it reached the street. Lex smiled. Exactly. You'll always save them first. Superman gently lowered the debris before flying back toward the armored suit. The two collided with tremendous force. The impact shattered windows across the block. Lex launched rockets. Superman caught them before they exploded and hurled them harmlessly into the harbor. The armor swung a massive steel fist. Superman blocked it. The shock cracked the pavement beneath them. Lex increased the armor's power. Hydraulic systems roared. You may be stronger. He drove Superman backward through a stone wall. But I built this suit to prove humanity doesn't need you. Superman stood. He brushed dust from his cape. This isn't about proving who's stronger. It's about protecting people, Lex charged. Superman flew upward at the last second. The armored suit crashed into the street, becoming lodged in its own impact crater. Before Lex could free himself, Superman wrapped thick steel cables around the armor using a nearby construction site. The machinery strained. It wouldn't budge. Police surrounded the area. Lex glared through the cracked visor. This isn't over. Superman looked at him. I hope next time we meet, it's to build something instead of destroy it. The helmet closed. Lex remained silent. The next morning, the Daily Star printed a special edition, Superman Stops Luthor Rampage. Lois dropped the newspaper onto Clark's desk. I still don't know where Superman disappears to after every rescue. Clark smiled. I'm sure he has his reasons. Lois crossed her arms. One of these days, I'm going to interview him. Clark chuckled. I wouldn't bet against you. Across Metropolis, workers repaired damaged buildings while citizens spoke of the battle they had witnessed. Some saw Superman as Earth's greatest protector. Others wondered if Lex Luthor had been right to question such incredible power. High above the city, Superman stood atop the Daily Star building, watching the sunrise. He knew this victory was only the beginning. Metropolis had gained a hero, but it had also gained an enemy who would never stop trying to defeat him. End of Action Comics number 2. Next issue, Action Comics number 3. As Lex Luthor begins rebuilding in secret, Superman uncovers a criminal conspiracy threatening the people of Metropolis from within its own streets. DC Super Pets number 1, Krypto, The Last Dog of Krypton, Earth 2. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. Long before Superman became the world's greatest hero, he had a best friend. On the distant planet Krypton, in the House of El, a white dog with a golden collar happily ran through the crystal gardens surrounding Jor-El's home. His name was Krypto. Unlike ordinary pets, Krypto was exceptionally intelligent and fiercely loyal. Wherever young Kal-El crawled, Krypto was never far behind, happily chasing toys or lying beside the infant's cradle. Laura laughed as Krypto gently licked Kal-El's face. I think he believes he's a babysitter. Jor-El smiled. I believe he takes the job very seriously. As Jor-El worked on his experimental rocket, he needed someone to test whether a living creature could survive the journey through deep space. There was only one volunteer he trusted. Krypto. The loyal dog wagged his tail. Jor-El knelt beside him. This is only a test, old friend. He fastened a special harness around Krypto before placing him inside the small prototype rocket. The rocket launched successfully. For a brief time, everything worked perfectly. Then the guidance system malfunctioned. The rocket veered off course and disappeared into the endless reaches of space. Jor-El desperately tried to regain contact. Nothing. Laura placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. We'll find him. Jor-El looked at the empty launch platform. I hope so. Days later, Krypton began to die. With no time remaining, Jor-El and Laura placed their infant son into a larger rocket and sent him toward Earth. Moments later, Krypton was destroyed. Years passed. Far beyond Earth's solar system, Krypto's damaged rocket continued drifting through space. Its automated systems slowly corrected its course. Eventually, it entered Earth's atmosphere. The small craft streaked across the Kansas night sky before crashing in an open field a few miles from Smallville. The impact startled nearby farmers. The rocket door slowly opened. A white dog cautiously stepped outside. He sniffed the air. Everything smelled different. He barked. Then suddenly, the yellow sun began affecting him. He leaped into the air and accidentally soared hundreds of feet before landing awkwardly in a cornfield. Krypto tilted his head. He tried running. Instead, he sprinted faster than a passing train. He barked in surprise. His bark echoed across the countryside with incredible force. He looked at his paws, then toward the sky. A moment later, he was flying. Elsewhere in Metropolis, Clark Kent sat at his desk inside the Daily Star when he heard something. A bark. Not an ordinary bark. His super hearing caught it from hundreds of miles away. Clark frowned. That's impossible. Excusing himself from the newsroom, he changed into Superman and flew toward Kansas. He landed near the smoking crater. Standing beside the damaged rocket was a familiar white dog. The moment Krypto saw him, his ears perked up. For a second, both simply stared. Then Krypto raced forward at super speed, knocking Superman onto his back as he enthusiastically licked his face. Clark laughed. "Krypto?" The dog barked happily. "I can't believe it." Clark hugged his old friend tightly. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Krypto wagged his tail so hard that he accidentally uprooted a small tree. Clark smiled. "I guess the yellow sun gave you powers too." Krypto barked proudly. Over the next several weeks, Clark helped Krypto adjust to life on Earth. Flying proved easy. Landing, not so much. During one practice flight, Krypto accidentally flew straight through a barn before sheepishly returning with a piece of wood stuck to his cape. Clark couldn't help but laugh. "We'll work on that." Krypto lowered his head, then barked happily as Clark scratched behind his ears. One afternoon, trouble struck. A commuter train lost its brakes while approaching a damaged bridge outside Metropolis. Superman flew toward the train. At the same time, Krypto heard the cries for help. Without waiting for instructions, he launched into the sky. Superman caught the front of the speeding train. Krypto flew beneath the rear cars, supporting their weight. Working together, they slowed the train to a safe stop just before the broken bridge. Passengers stepped off in amazement. One little girl walked over to Krypto. She gently patted his head. "Good dog." Krypto happily barked. Superman smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you." Krypto proudly stood beside his oldest friend. From that day forward, the people of Metropolis knew that Superman wasn't the only hero watching over them. Sometimes, their protector had 4 legs and a wagging tail. End of DC Super Pets number 1. Next issue, DC Super Pets number 2, Krypto meets Ace, the loyal dog of Bruce Wayne, and the 2 unlikely heroes team up when a dangerous threat targets Gotham City's animals. Green Lantern Emerald Light number 1, The Green Flame Earth 2, Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. For centuries, legend spoke of a mysterious green flame. It had appeared in different ages throughout history, always bringing prophecy. To some, it promised death. To others, hope. The flame was said to speak only 3 times. The first time, it foretold death. The second time, it foretold life. The third, no one knew. The green flame waited, years later. Outside Gotham City, a powerful locomotive raced through the countryside beneath a storm-filled sky. Among the passengers was Alan Scott, a young engineer and railroad executive returning from a business meeting. Alan wasn't wealthy because of inheritance. He had earned his position through intelligence, determination, and hard work. As the train sped through the night, Alan reviewed construction plans for a new railway expansion. His friend and fellow engineer, Frank Delmar, leaned over. "You ever stop working?" Alan smiled. "Not if I can help it." Before Frank could answer, the train suddenly lurched. A deafening explosion echoed beneath the tracks. The bridge ahead collapsed. "Brakes!" The engineer pulled desperately on the controls. Nothing. The locomotive flew from the rails. Steel twisted. Glass shattered. Passenger cars tumbled into the ravine below. The train became a storm of fire and wreckage. When Alan regained consciousness, everything around him was silent. The train lay destroyed. Smoke drifted into the night sky. Alan struggled to stand. Pain shot through his shoulder. "Help!" There was no answer. Then, a soft green glow appeared nearby. At the center of the wreckage rested an ancient lantern made of green metal, unlike anything Alan had ever seen. It should have been destroyed. Instead, it was untouched. The lantern floated gently into the air. A voice echoed from within the emerald light. "Alan Scott." Alan froze. Who's there? The lantern floated closer. I have waited centuries for one worthy to bear my light. Alan cautiously reached toward it. The moment his fingers touched the lantern, visions filled his mind. He saw an ancient civilization discovering the glowing flame. He saw warriors using its power for justice. He saw kingdoms rise and fall. Finally, he saw the lantern falling to earth from the heavens long ago. The voice spoke again. The green flame has spoken twice before. Now it speaks a third time. The lantern opened. Inside burned an emerald fire. Not hot, not cold, alive. The flame spoke. Take from me a ring. Alan reached into the lantern. A glowing emerald ring emerged. The moment he placed it upon his finger, green energy surrounded him. His injuries vanished. His strength returned. His torn clothes transformed. A crimson shirt appeared beneath a green armored chest. A flowing green cape draped over his shoulders. Purple gloves formed around his hands. A green domino mask covered his eyes. He stared at the glowing ring. What is this? The lantern answered. With this ring, your will becomes reality. Alan raised his hand. A beam of emerald light shot into the sky. He instinctively imagined a bridge. A solid green bridge appeared across the ravine. He imagined a giant hand. An enormous emerald hand lifted twisted steel from trapped passengers. Alan looked in amazement. I'm creating these? The power obeys courage. All through the night, Alan used the ring to rescue survivors. He lifted entire train cars, created ladders, constructed shields against falling debris, carried the injured safely to waiting ambulances. By sunrise, every survivor had been rescued. The newspapers called it a miracle. No one could explain how so many lives had been saved. Later, Alan returned to the crash site. The mysterious lantern still rested exactly where he'd found it. He picked it up carefully. What are you? The lantern answered. I am the Starheart, a fragment of ancient magical power. You are now my champion. Alan looked thoughtfully at the glowing ring. I don't know if I'm worthy. The flame flickered gently. The worthy always ask that question. Over the following weeks, Alan secretly learned to control the ring. He discovered it could create almost anything he imagined. Walls, aircraft, tools, chains, weapons, even giant emerald eagles soaring through the sky. But the ring also had a weakness. During one experiment, Alan tried affecting an ordinary wooden crate. The ring's energy passed harmlessly through it. Alan frowned. It doesn't work on wood. The lantern answered simply, every power has limits. Alan nodded. Then I'll learn to work around mine. One evening, Alan stood atop a skyscraper overlooking Gotham City. He looked at the emerald ring. I suppose every hero needs a name. He smiled slightly. The lantern is green. The light is green. He raised his glowing fist toward the sky. Green Lantern. Far below, criminals continued their work, unaware that another protector had risen. One born not from science, but from ancient magic. The Emerald Light had found its champion. End of Green Lantern, Emerald Light #1. Next issue, Green Lantern, Emerald Light #2. Alan Scott faces his first superpowered enemy when a ruthless criminal seeks the mystical green flame for himself, forcing the new Green Lantern to master the limits of the Starheart's power. Batman, Gotham's Night #3, The Huntress. Saga 1, Gods, Monsters, and Mortals, Part 1, Mortals. The Firefly case had come to an end. Garfield Lynn sat behind bars, awaiting trial. For Gotham City, one nightmare had ended. For Batman, the real war had only begun. Deep beneath Wayne Manor, the Batcave was illuminated by the glow of the Bat computer. A digital map of Gotham filled the massive screen. Red markers spread across the city like a disease. Each represented a known operation of the Falcone crime family. Batman studied the files. The Falcone organization has existed for decades. Old black and white photographs appeared on the monitor. The first showed an older man in a tailored suit. Vincent Falcone. Batman spoke quietly. Vincent Falcone founded the family. The next image appeared. A younger man with sharp features and cold eyes. Carmine Falcone, following Vincent's retirement, control passed to his son, Carmine Falcone. The screen shifted again. 3 more photographs appeared. Sofia Falcone, Mario Falcone, and Alberto Falcone. Batman folded his arms. 3 heirs. 1 empire. Alfred entered carrying a tray with coffee. I assume Mr. Falcone isn't planning on retiring. Batman looked toward the map, not willingly. Later that night, an abandoned shipping warehouse near Gotham Harbor buzzed with activity. Crates of illegal firearms were unloaded from trucks. Stacks of cash exchanged hands. Falcone soldiers laughed as they worked. 1 guard lit a cigarette. You hear about that freak dressed like a bat? Another scoffed. If he shows up here, he'll end up floating in the harbor. The lights suddenly went out. The warehouse fell silent. What happened? A metallic whistle sliced through the darkness. A batarang struck the first guard's pistol, sending it skidding across the floor. Before anyone reacted, Batman dropped from the rafters. He disappeared into the shadows almost immediately. Another batarang cut the lights over the loading dock. Darkness returned. 1 gangster turned a corner. Nothing. Then a black-gloved hand grabbed him from behind. He collapsed unconscious. Another raised a shotgun. A batarang struck the weapon, knocking it from his hands. Someone fired wildly. The bullets hit empty crates. Batman was already somewhere else. Using the darkness, elevated catwalks, and smoke from broken machinery, he dismantled the operation, 1 man at a time. Within minutes, every Falcone soldier lay unconscious and bound with heavy cable. Batman looked around the warehouse. No Carmine. He expected as much. Falcone never dirtied his own hands. Batman disappeared before the police arrived. The next morning, Wayne Manor. Bruce sat before the Bat computer reviewing reports. Another file caught his attention. A series of burglaries, jewelry stores, private estates, museum collections. Every security camera failed to capture more than a blur. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no confirmed description. Batman leaned closer. The same suspect. Alfred looked over his shoulder. The police have no identification? Bruce shook his head. No gender, no name, no pattern beyond theft. They're careful. Alfred nodded. A professional. Batman saved the file. I'll come back to it. That evening, the police scanner crackled. All available units? 3 deceased males located in Crime Alley? Possible homicide. Batman immediately launched the Batmobile. He arrived minutes before the streets were fully sealed by the GCPD. Using the rooftops, Batman slipped behind the crime scene unnoticed. 3 young men lay where they had fallen. Each wore street gang colors. Each had suffered a fatal wound. Batman examined the first body. No gunshot, no stab wounds. Instead, an arrow protruded from the victim's chest. The second, another arrow. The third, the same. Batman carefully examined the shafts. Precision. He measured the angle. The shooter never missed. No shell casings, no footprints, only arrows. Either a bow or a crossbow. Batman searched nearby rooftops. The shooter had chosen elevated positions. Disciplined, patient, professional. Over the following days, similar murders occurred across Gotham. Each victim possessed an extreme history. Drug dealers, enforcers, hitmen, every crime scene told the same story. An unseen hunter, 1 shot, 1 kill, no mistakes. During his latest investigation, Batman noticed something snagged on broken brickwork high above an alley. A tiny strip of purple fabric. It had torn free while someone escaped. He carefully sealed it inside an evidence container. The next morning, Bruce Wayne visited one of Gotham's finest custom textile manufacturers. The elderly owner carefully examined the fabric beneath a magnifying lamp. I remember this. Bruce remained calm. You do? It isn't common. What makes it unusual? The stitching. The weave. I've only made this material for a handful of customers. Bruce smiled politely. Would you happen to remember their names? The tailor opened an order book. He slowly turned several pages, then stopped. This one appears several times. Bruce glanced down. Helena Bertinelli. That night, back inside the Batcave, Bruce researched the name. Helena Bertinelli. Age 24, born in Star City, daughter of mafia boss Franco Bertinelli. At 16, she disappeared from Star City. No missing persons report, no criminal record, no known employment. Bruce continued reading, ran away. Alfred looked thoughtfully at the file. Escaping organized crime. Bruce nodded, or bringing it with her. The Bat computer located a small apartment in Gotham. Bruce memorized the address. Hours later, Batman watched quietly from a nearby rooftop. Helena's apartment remained dark. Then, the window opened. A woman stepped onto the fire escape. She wore a dark purple costume. A black mask concealed her face. Across her back rested a crossbow. Batman followed silently. She moved with remarkable speed, almost effortlessly. Eventually, she stopped atop a church roof. Without turning around, she spoke. "You've been following me." Batman stepped from the shadows. "I have questions?" "So do I." She spun. The crossbow was already aimed. "Who are you?" Batman ignored the question. "You're killing criminals. They deserve worse. They deserve a trial." She laughed bitterly. "Tell that to the families they destroyed." Batman took one careful step forward. "You don't have to become like them. They already made sure I did." Without warning, she fired. Batman dodged the first bolt. The second grazed his shoulder, tearing through the fabric of his early batsuit. He threw a batarang. She deflected it. The two closed the distance. Batman struck. She countered. Her fighting style was fast, precise, and relentless. She flipped backward, drawing another bolt. Batman lunged. Too late. The arrow slammed into the wall behind him, pinning part of his cape and shoulder to the brick. Without armored plating in the suit yet, the arrow pierced the fabric and held him in place long enough to stop his pursuit. Helena lowered her crossbow for just a moment. "I'm not your enemy, Batman." Before he could free himself, she fired a grappling line toward a neighboring rooftop. Within seconds, she disappeared into Gotham's endless maze of rooftops. By the time Batman tore himself free, she was gone. Days passed. Every lead went cold. Her apartment had been abandoned, no forwarding address, no financial activity, no sightings. It was as though Helena Bertinelli had vanished from Gotham itself. Batman stood before the Batcomputer. A new file appeared on the screen. Unknown vigilante, status, missing. Bruce quietly closed the file. "She'll come back." Alfred looked toward him. "You seem certain." Batman gazed out toward Gotham through the cave's upper opening. "People like us always do." End of Batman Gotham's Night number 3, The Huntress. Next issue, Batman Gotham's Night number 4. As Batman continues dismantling the Falcone crime family, Carmine Falcone finally decides the mysterious vigilante has become too dangerous to ignore.